The Occupy Wall Street website lists dozens of demands. Here are a few of them, so you can get a sense of how deranged these people are. Repeal the Taft-Hartley Act. Unionize all workers immediately. Raise the minimum wage immediately to $18 an hour. Create a maximum wage of $90 per hour to eliminate inequality. Institute a 6-hour workday and 6 weeks of paid vacation. Institute a moratorium on all foreclosures and layoffs immediately. Repeal racist and xenophobic English-only laws. Open the borders to all immigrants, legal or illegal. Offer immediate unconditional amnesty to all undocumented residents of the U.S. Create a single-payer, universal health care system. Pass stricter campaign finance reform laws. Ban all private donations. All campaigns will receive equal funding provided by the taxpayers. Institute a negative income tax and tax the very rich at rates up to 90%. Pass far stricter environmental protection and animal rights laws. Ban the private ownership of land. Make homeschooling illegal. Religious fanatics use it to feed their children propaganda. Do you see what the OWS movement has devolved into? Do you understand just how far this administration and its radical leftist labor union accomplices have unleashed on America? Let me explain it to you. More than 200 violent crimes, including rapes, knifings, and murders, have been committed at Occupy Wall Street sites around the nation. We've witnessed public urination and defecation. The OWS sites quickly become open-air drug markets. Disease is rampant, including an outbreak of tuberculosis in Atlanta. Public nudity, masturbation, and sexual intercourse are carried on daily by the vermin who populate these sites. They're characterized by incessant drumming, bordering on psychological abuse by the aging children who have taken to the streets of our cities. Sanitary conditions are so dangerous in the festering mess that Occupy Wall Street protesters had created that after they were finally evicted, the areas had to be decontaminated by sanitation workers in hazmat suits. Aggressive panhandlers mooch off anyone who dares get within 100 yards of the demonstrators. Local small businesses, like restaurants and coffee shops, were forced to close their doors because the protesters drove away regular customers. That's what the rent-a-mobs that have been occupying public land in cities across the nation in the name of their anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-morality, anti-Semitic causes. They're walking billboards for the reason they are unemployable. They're a combination of stupidity, laziness, and nihilism, and each one of them borrows tens of thousands of dollars to learn these skills and values at Big Government U. It wasn't until 2 months after the demonstrators had begun to occupy Zuccotti Park that the sniveling New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg finally decided to have his police department clear the demonstrators out. Showing incredible restraint, the police took care of business, finally removing the protesters and their tents and hosing down the area. Within a few days, thousands of demonstrators showed up to participate in shutting down traffic and disrupting the business of New York City. Mealy-mouthed Mayor Bloomberg changed his tune, saying that the cops would respond appropriately if the demonstrators caused any trouble. Before it was over, nearly 300 were arrested, as police managed to control the mob. That's what we're up against in the Occupy Wall Street movement, the most racist, violent, ignorant group of demonstrators since the 1960s. If you think I'm exaggerating, that this is just the ranting of a small minority, then you haven't been paying attention. There's a reason Obama hasn't spoken out against these people. There's a reason Nancy Pelosi has given them her blessing. During his campaign for the presidency, Obama promised to create a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well-funded as our military. His reason for doing this? It would help him advance his objectives for America. No one in the government media complex bothered to ask him what he meant. But we're finding out now. Teamsters Union President James Hoffa Jr. explained what is going on in his Labor Day address, the same one Obama spoke at. Hoffa said, "President Obama, this is your army. We are ready to march. Let's take these son-of-a-bitches out." How is this a government-funded civilian army? Let me explain. Your taxpayer dollars fund the labor unions. You pay the salaries of public employee union members, and a portion of that money goes to the unions they belong to in the form of dues. On top of that, Obama made sure that when the government commandeered General Motors and Chrysler, the unions took ownership of the companies, relegating stockholders to second-class status. The president has stacked the National Labor Relations Board in favor of the unions, and he's given unions exemptions from Obamacare in record numbers. It's his way of funding his civilian army. And that army is in the vanguard of the Occupy Wall Street movement. The president and his anti-American cohorts are in fundamental agreement with the OWS demonstrators, and the longer their anti-freedom, anti-Semitic, anti-capitalist message is allowed to be broadcast to the American public, the more likely their agenda and their message become acceptable to the public. Did you think that Occupy Wall Street was somehow a spontaneous uprising against banks? It's exactly the opposite. The Obama administration, through its shadow supporters, is using the spreading Occupy Wall Street demonstrations to get out their message. Ultimately, they'll use it to clamp down further on our civil liberties. Don't believe that? George Soros' influence is everywhere. I told you about his anti-Semitic JFFJ, but his involvement doesn't end there. The demonstrations in New York and other American cities were started by a Canadian radical leftist group called Adbusters. The group's purpose is to topple existing power structures. Adbusters used Soros money to stage a marketing campaign that was designed to bring the Arab Spring to cities in America. Soros's Open Society donated $3.5 million to the Tides Center, a San Francisco organization that distributes money to other leftist causes. The Tides Group gave $185,000 of that money to Adbusters. The Working Families Party, along with the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, and what's left of ACORN, are also instrumental in organizing and spreading the demonstrations. ACORN is still around, this time as New York Communities for Change, NYCC, and they're still in the business of funding illicit activities in order to undermine the United States. They were revealed to be providing key organization services for the OWS movement. NYCC had been paying protesters to attend OWS demonstrations every day, despite NYCC's lying to the press, telling reporters they weren't. Insiders had outed NYCC, and the group scrambled to do damage control, shredding papers, destroying boxes of supplies with ACORN emblazoned all over them, threatening and firing employees who told the truth.